Good Sunday evening, everyone. Welcome to Patriots and Petticoats live show. We have so much to discuss with you in such a short period of time this evening. We have a hard stop at 10 p.m., but we obviously welcome and invite the audience. We've got some great stuff. Eric is going to open the show for us this evening, and then we actually have a special guest. Many of you know him as Fox. He is going to discuss with us the Donald Trump situation, as Donald Trump is supposed to hand himself over to the authorities tomorrow. So we're going to get into some of that. And then, of course, our wonderful segment, Two Truths and a Lie. And I didn't mess it up this time, boys. I wrote one myself. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric. Eric, go ahead and start us off for this evening.
All right. I think this will be an okay tone setter. I wrote 1,000 words of bullet points. We created this show to discuss the issues of the day, maybe things that aren't being discussed enough or points of view that we feel are disproportionately represented. We're the radio station and I Am Legend. We are here to assure you that you aren't going crazy. The world is, and we are here. President Bukele in El Salvador recently said, quote, "The most powerful country in the world is falling so fast, it makes you think, what are the real reasons? Something so big and so powerful can't be destroyed so quickly unless the enemy comes from within." And I have to agree, we are our own worst enemy. Patriotism, traditional family values, things that are pillars of what this country is and represents are at all-time lows. So why is that? I think one of our main issues here is how special many of us fancy ourselves. You most certainly are not. You might be special to your mom, but you are one of 353,233,854 American citizens, and we cannot operate as a nation of 353 million special, unique little individuals because it will fall apart if we do that. We have to understand the purpose and the value of majority rule. Television and social media are not helping. They can't tell you enough how different we all are. Have you ever been so aware of so many public officials' sexual proclivities? Not just sexual orientations. We know which ones like to dress up like dogs. We know who had their genitals removed or surgically modified. Whatever happened to TMI? Remember TMI? Too much information? What does this have to do with anything? Is my question. And my other question is this: do you really think you can change someone's mind who is truly biased against you with immersion therapy? Because it seems like the current strategy breeds far more contempt than it does acceptance. This country used to be a melting pot, and now it's more of an ice cube tray. You can't speak on this because you're not gay. You can't speak on this because you're not in the teachers union. You're not black. You're not this. You're not that. You're not in our special little group. We teach kids from the time they're toddlers that everyone is a winner. And if something unfair happens to you, that's not life. That's an assault. It isn't enough to say live and let live, good for you, and move on. We have groups preaching tolerance yet displaying anything but. We have groups who don't stop at tolerance. They require your participation and preferential treatments that they call rights. Gay rights, women's rights, trans rights. I'm sorry, what rights do you not have as a free American? I've been asking this question lately, and the answers are vague. Usually I'm told there are 42 anti-LGBTQI laws on the books, but that's highly interpretive. A law that says grown men can't pee next to my daughter is an issue of public safety. You don't have a right to barge into whatever sport or bathroom you please, regardless of what you're wearing or what you call yourself. Children who just found out Santa Claus isn't real are being given authority to change whether or not they experience puberty. A man was assaulted in Canada by a transgender activist because he had a sign that said, "Kids can't consent." The Vancouver police said he invited the attack with his sign, that his words were violence. This is the land of make-believe we find ourselves in. It's time to go back to saying things that are true, despite people's feelings, and focus on the real problems at hand, like World War, the rise of the machine. A new industrialized nation is dropping the dollar every day, if you haven't noticed. India today. There are no atheists in foxholes, and I'm willing to bet there are no pronouns either. We're not the United States anymore. We're 50 states that happen to be next to each other. If we don't start focusing on our similarities over our differences and understand the importance of majority rule, we are toast. A vast majority of Americans do not care who you like to fuck, and what more you push, more becomes abundantly, and the more you push, the more it becomes abundantly clear. We all just want to have a safe day at work, make a respectable wage, pick our kids up from a safe day at school, pay our bills, and pursue our happiness. That is a lot to work with right there. And we have far more in common than what I just said. And we'd have real discussion. Once again, we'd find out we have even more. And that's what this show's about. Let's have a discussion. Let's treat the problems, not the symptoms.
Well said, Eric.
Ooh,
I love it. I love it.
fire.
He's on fire. He
Fire
got
to start the show.
Eric has shit to say. Let me tell you something. And one more thing.
Maybe
on
I
top
needed
of that,
this political
yeah,
show.
this is therapy, bro. We all need this after a long week of what the fuck just happened. What Jersey Shore crashing into the Kardashians. That's our fucking government right now. So yeah, we need this rap session. This is almost like TMZ nowadays. My God, it's ridiculous.
I was watching the golf tournament today, and World News Tonight started immediately after the golf, just automatically. And the way they're talking about this Trump indictment, like it's the moon landing in the political world. It's monumental. It's all we need to focus
We
on
found
right now.
Osama bin Laden.
I mean, yeah,
They're gonna announce it across the freaking every sports stadium when they arrest them.
I didn't see anybody on the news telling me that India is offering their currency to countries that are in the dollar crunch, but I did see that, deep in the internet.
Yeah.
That feels like front page news.
So, okay, we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest on.
I am on one tonight, Heather.
Yeah, you are. Fuck yeah. Okay, so this is Fox. He, because of his job, obviously, and the way that the world works these days, it's sometimes not safe to have your face on the internet. So I went ahead and brought him up. Fox, thank you for joining us this evening. The big talk right now is the Trump indictment. What's going to happen? How's it going to play out? How's it going to go down? Talk to me a little bit. First, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about how was it possible for the DA to take the charge and move it from a misdemeanor to a felony? How can you just decide on your own that charge is now a felony charge? Like, is that something that's common to up the charge so that you can impact people more? Like, can you talk to me about that first?
It's going to depend on what the charges are. Right now, we still don't know what exactly he's being charged with. Some sources say there's possibly 12 separate charges, multiple misdemeanors, and then felonies. Generally speaking, what happens is you're charged with a felony, and then the prosecutor is going to downgrade based off of whether or not it's a serious offense, you're a first timer, or they just don't want to have a trial. But we're in a unique situation because it's President Trump. If they're upgrading charges from misdemeanors to felonies, there's probably going to be some form of, I guess, evidence of motive or knowledge, like a conspiracy claim, records to that effect, to enhance it and tack on as much, to make it as embarrassing as possible for Trump.
So we've trumped up the charge. How fucking funny is that? And so now let's say that what we've been floating, right, or what we've been floated to us has been that it's going to be conspiracy to commit campaign finance violation because he paid Cohen, who paid Stormy Daniels, and then there was some sort of reimbursement process. What if it comes like it? He said today he is going to plead not guilty. So what if it comes out that the actual Joey said, wait, did Fox put down the anime long enough to join you all? Yes, he did. What So he pleads not guilty. What if it was actually his, like, you know how all of that stuff works on the backside, right? Like your organization pays things to people. Like Trump isn't even involved in that. He just looks at his attorney and says, take care of it. What's his liability then at that point? Can they even charge him?
It's going to depend on what evidence they have. If it's his employees acting without his knowledge, you're not. It's not going to be easy to secure a conviction at all, or at least it won't be upheld on appeal. I with Trump, who knows? It very well could be just accountants who made that mistake. But if everything is, if it's related to campaign expenses, there's got to be some communication between Trump, one of his executive staff members, and then that campaign. And that's something I have not heard anything about over the last few months of everybody talking about this, is who was the recipient of these funds for the purposes of a campaign.
So the only thing that I can think of that they're trying to tie this into is because Trump was his campaign financer. Like he himself, through the organization and through Donald Trump, funded much of his own campaign. So there's a part of me that wonders if, because maybe he did reimburse himself, but because it was, I don't know. We don't know jack shit really, because they're being pretty close to the vest with this. But I know you're not a very big fan of Donald Trump. And so I am curious to hear how you see this playing out on the back end of things from a political perspective. Do you think this helps Trump? Do you think it hurts him? And then from a legal ramification, you are an attorney. What does this do to law in general? I feel like our justice system has been usurped in a way that is performative now. It's not about justice anymore. It's not about law. It's not about order. It's not about what you went to school for, what made you passionate about law. It is about, it's a stage and we're all players. That's what it feels like at this point in every aspect.
I think the law has always been that way. In thinking about the Scopes monkey trial, I mean, your role as an attorney in a criminal defense trial or prosecution really is performative. There's a lot of exaggeration. You look at Binger and how his antics. You look at Gwyneth Paltrow's attorney on his opening statement.
I missed
They
that
try.
piece.
You look at Murdaugh. They're always you're trying to appeal to the jury to get a hold of them and get them to empathize with you. The only thing that's different now is we're watching trials for entertainment.
Right.
Whereas in the past we did that too, but through traditional media and newspapers. Going back to the first question, Trump being a martyr is the best thing that can happen to the Republican Party and the right wing. And it doesn't matter whether or not you like him or not, or you're pro DeSantis or not. It'd be freaking hilarious to see him convicted of a felony charge just because of the backlash that will create. And hopefully somebody good can take advantage of that. If I were a Democrat, my advice to the governor of New York would be to suck the sails out of the right wing and Donald Trump by pardoning him. And then he gets to look like the better man, the bigger man, and ride to success in re-election, because everybody will be like, oh, he's a nice Jerry Ford type. Yeah. We've healed the nation. Maybe that won't play in New York, though. I don't know. I don't give a shit about that state.
True. Guys, do you have any questions for him?
I have a lot of questions.
Go.
But we'll just talk about it. Like, one thing I'd love to to ask you in the circles that you run in outside of the internet, where is some of these top officials coming with he'll have a chance to prove his innocence in a court of law? Like, when did that start? When did the table start to shift? I've seen some Senate hearings. They're confirming some federal judges. These judges can't answer questions that I can answer.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that with the Democrats is merely performative.
Okay.
Like Chuck Schumer is notorious for saying things he doesn't believe or he knows is not true because it gets him points with the base and he's able to raise a lot of money with it.
I feel that with everybody.
And that's very common, unfortunately. I don't know, but what I do know is the people eat it up. And now we're in a culture where your mind is made up before the trial. And
Yes.
the right is guilty of this just
Yeah.
as much as the left. And you look at Derek Chauvin, you look at what will be the Tyree Nichols scenarios where that's fairly unique. But Derek Chauvin became the right wanted to paint a picture of him and justified his death because of his character and the fact that he was high. The left wanted to make him a martyr of police brutality. And I'm out here standing in the middle saying, is that type of police response to a person who's presumed innocent and is only arrested on suspicion of a misdemeanor appropriate for the state? Nuance is lost in the public. And that's a fact that I have to accept, and I'll never change anyone's opinion on that. But it just seems like every freaking issue that comes up is going to be politicized, and people will make assumptions based off of the color of their skin or their perceived politics, etc. And that's not good for our culture at all.
It's horrible for America. Okay, my next question, I think let me make sure I kind of understand how to word this. So with Trump being indicted by a grand jury, 32 counts, whatever, we're going to learn that later. Hopefully, I'm not exactly sure. I know the Secret Service has jobs within the Constitution. And then New York is going to have its own state constitution. There's a lot of moving parts here. My main question is, does this set some kind of precedence? Have we opened up a jar of worms? Because there's Republican DAs too. Are we going to start seeing this back and forth Jersey Shore just smashing into the Kardashian show? And we got this whole reality TV show going on, and Tom and Jerry are just running around the house. What's happening? I mean, is that where this is going?
I think that will be an inevitable result, but there's not a lot of right-wing personalities in prosecutor world.
Right.
Even in the
that
most
are
red,
activists.
That are activists, even in the most red rural states, you don't see it. You really only see the activism in larger cities where they have the personnel, and then they
went to Stanford.
Well, the elected will be essentially a managerial position who decides, these are cases that are important to me, and they have the resources. In the rest of, flyover country, you have prosecutors that are covering multiple counties. They're trying to wheel and deal because they're working 60-hour weeks. Their caseloads are incredibly high, and they just don't have the time to care. But let's rewind back to the 1700s, early 1800s.
Yes.
The Federalists versus Anti-Federalists.
Yes.
There were judges sentencing political opponents to death at the founding of our country because of their political opinions. there was a stop to that, and to my knowledge, no one was actually executed, but they were incredibly lively, hyperbolic individuals.
Yeah, it's never changed.
Well, that's me.
I have a question as it relates just talking about activists. Is it possible? Because all signs were pointing to this was not happening. It was looking like this was all going to sort of go away. If this shooter doesn't go into the school, and more importantly, the Tennessee Capitol doesn't get rushed, does he still get indicted? Or did they need this so we don't talk about that?
Ooh.
Or is that too tinfoil hat?
I don't know.
Because it is something that crossed my mind today.
There's nothing too tinfoil hat for Fox. Fox lives in a Faraday cage.
Fox, I was under the impression that MSNBC, CNN cut a check to the DA and was like, make this happen because our ratings are fucked.
If January 6th was 9/11, I mean, this was at least the coal.
Well, is the media actually covering the Capitol protests though? Because to my knowledge, they did it in Austin, they did it in Kentucky, they did it in Tennessee.
They absolutely did.
And how many other states did they raid and do their little protests in? I know it
was quite a few. You have to follow a bunch of shouts of scoundrels to actually get down to that what's really happening in the world. But there was a bunch of, I've seen some videos floating around.
It happened more than in Nashville?
Oh yeah.
Austin.
I didn't know that.
It was a bunch of capitals.
Yeah.
People violently walking around like they were on a tour.
I just don't know if the mainstream media is covering it because I don't follow them at all.
They're not covering it. They're not covering anything around the world. They're not. All they're covering is Trump
indictment. Yeah.
So in that case, I would say no to the conspiracy because the media is not making a deal out of the Capitol protest.
MSNBC had a 2-hour block labeled "The Trump Indictment."
Yes. Hey, I can freaking. I'll play some X-File music because you know who else isn't really covering it? Fox. Like nobody's really covering it.
Nope.
Well, who are their main advertisers?
Pharmaceutical companies.
So like I don't ever give fucking shit to the media, right? Like I give them nothing, not even an inch. But in fairness, this is fairly consequential, right? Like we have a former president of the United States being arrested. Like that's a big deal.
He's being arrested for something that you could probably arrest most Americans for, and that's a procedural error in taxes. For fuck's sake, have you ever read our tax code? They keep it that way so that we could all be arrested any minute. I believe that. But none of us are probably completely squeaky clean of a procedural error. Bootstrapped to some bullshit. I don't exactly know what that means, but I heard that somewhere.
What's the statute of limitations on stealing street signs?
Real quick, I just want to go to a couple of these real fast. MB says, in my opinion, Trump's indictment isn't about Trump the person. He's just a figure now. It's about us, patriots. Yeah. It's another message being sent like January 6th.
Agree.
Joey says, a lot of people, both right and left, have made their names on Trump's. They need this like they need water. That's so true, Joey. And I mean, you see it, right? You see it with the media ratings. During Trump's presidency, the news was like a drug for people. They were watching it nonstop because they wanted to know, what did Trump fuck up today? What did Trump not fuck up today?
What did he have for lunch so I can make fun of it?
Yeah, exactly. How many cheeseburgers did Donald Trump eat today from McDonald's? It's like Joe Biden and his fucking ice cream. But the media is starving right now because of people like us, right? Like we've gone out, we're like, okay, you guys aren't doing your fucking job, so we're going to do it for you. And what that has created is people have moved away. They're consuming information in a way different. COVID, I keep saying this. I think COVID was one of the largest overestimations on the bureaucratic or governmental part that has ever happened, because they locked us up and they're like, okay, you're just gonna go play baseball outside or whatever. You're gonna find something to do with your time. What did we find to do with our time? Let's read this fucking legislation you guys are passing. Let's start reading. What are you doing on Capitol
What's
Hill?
really
Let's start
happening?
paying a little bit closer attention.
I
And
got time.
yeah, exactly. And you gave us work from home jobs. So now we have more time to be at home and podcast and
Go through our
discuss and have
kids' shit.
conversations. Yeah. So I say that a lot, that it was they really overestimated how much power and control they would have, which you see it now, the Restrict Act. They're trying to come in and rein some of that in and be like, well, if they have a lot of usership and there's a lot of people talking about things that we can't control, we need to kind of control that again. We need to dial that back.
Is anyone in mainstream media or Fox even talking about that?
The Restrict
About
Act?
what?
The Restrict Act?
No.
No
one
it's
is.
absolutely
Only if you
insane.
get Massey or Paul on.
Yeah. There isn't even Fox. I mean, I know and I know you and kind of your backstory a little bit more than most people, but we know, like, when the Patriot Act came out, so 9/11 happened and Patriot Act comes out and everybody's like, oh my God, we need this. We need this for our national security. We have to protect ourselves. We can't have another 9/11 again. We got to do this.
Whatever it takes.
Both sides, it was uniparty, fucking rah, rah, rah. Let's take away the rights of everybody we possibly can in the name of national security. Yeah. And then this Restrict Act, they get up, and the performative part is to talk about TikTok and be like, oh, it's so bad. China's stealing your data. China this, China that. When really, it's about governmental control. And like, you can read the bill. I think it only mentions TikTok like twice as like an example, not as the only piece of the puzzle.
It's the don't say TikTok.
Huh?
It's the don't say TikTok bill.
Right.
What you're gonna do is take the First Amendment and you're gonna hand it to a bureaucrat for the rest of our country's life. And we will never ever get it back.
You get to determine what people get to say from now on.
Only if bloodsheds will we get that back if we hand that to a bureaucracy. And then once they have that, the Second Amendment's next, and it'll be very easy. We can't start this precedence like this.
Well, no. And then you just let all the intel agencies and everybody else.
Oh my God!
Get into that shit.
Yeah.
And it's deep already. Like, we're just now starting to unravel this yarn. They're like, let's pass a bill to where it's just cool, and we'll just shut up.
So the really interesting part of that Restrict Act is the power is given to the Commerce Secretary, but the decisions are made by the DNI, the Department of National Intelligence. Yeah.
The Director of National
Intelligence. I apologize. Yes.
Which just hands it to the bureaucracy. We'll never get it back.
Community.
Somebody who can be purchased.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like they'll say it's about TikTok, but what it really is that there's a billionaire who now owns one of the most popular social media sites, who's putting the algorithm and everything else out in public. It's almost like a no, Elon, you will do what we say type bill.
Well, speaking of which, just since you just mentioned it, Fox, I just want to touch on it real fast. Did you guys notice that it came out? So, okay, real quick, I want to backtrack. I sat in the space with Elon Musk after they rolled out the open source and listening to him talk about it. So it's happening live. Like, he was personally there live while developers were swimming through the code that he had just put out publicly. And he's listening and he's like, one of the people said, well, Elon, this is following everything that you do. You're written in here. And he's sitting there and he was like, wait, what? Why? Why are you guys doing that? And it was like he in the moment discovered that their development team in the source code made it to where every single thing that Elon Musk does within the platform is monitored by the algorithm. And then now on the back end, after it's been out for about 48 hours, they have discovered that there is a mechanism within the source code that allows the United States government to go in and personally impact the algorithm without telling Twitter, without going through Twitter. They just can do it on their own.
They just gave him the keys to the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't own that anymore. That's what that means.
Yeah. So the question then becomes, if you're Elon Musk, you just paid $44 billion for this company, and you find out that the government can change your algorithm without talking to you about it or without going through you first. The very first question I have is, who on my development team that wrote this code gave that access? Who built this into this code? Because you're fired. Like immediately, you're fucking gone.
Well, I've always suspected since he took over Twitter that he has like zero control over what's going on. And this does kind of lend credibility to that theory. I mean, you've got more people banned now than the last few months of previous owners. You're locked in appeal review for weeks. Every freaking thing you post has a normal people don't say that on a day-to-day basis. Consider revising warning.
Are you sure you want to post this? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I want.
Why do I get that every tweet? What am I? I'm like, what? I just took the time to write this motherfucker out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm going to revise it and make it worse. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now that you said that, actually, maybe Biden isn't a cunt.
You're right. I should
Thanks for
suggest
helping
something
me
about
out with that. That's like the NFL putting stop racism in the fucking end zone. Oh, thanks. You cured it.
It's done. We've solved the problem.
Every racist who reads that is immediately reformed.
All that happens is I have to click that damn X and then I throw an exclamation point on it. Yeah, I meant it.
Joey says the Restrict Act is an insult to our intelligence. It's like they're banking on us not remembering the Patriot Act. 100%.
They're banking on us not paying attention.
Yes.
They didn't tear that statue down?
Which statue?
The Patriot Act. Whatever statue they put up for that.
Oh. I don't know that there is a statue for that one.
If you look it up in the Webster, it's probably already erased.
Probably.
It's never happened, Heather. Stop asking questions.
You don't know.
Stop asking questions.
It's like the theme of the day. It's like, shut up. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just go along to get along.
I dug into HR 1 today.
Yeah?
Yeah. That was built to be vetoed by Biden. It's got so many presidential restrictions in it.
As it should. I mean,
yeah,
that's
it
the
should.
job,
But
right?
not,
like we have
that's
3 branches of government, and there's supposed to be a check and balance on one another. And I think it's funny, like if you walked up to just like the average person and said, "Hey, what are our 3 branches of government?" They couldn't answer the question.
No.
And sometimes those man on the street things absolutely shock me. But
I actually thought about for our show going and doing that. Like I bought like a mic.
You should.
To go start doing some of those things. And obviously because we're in different states, it would be fun to kind of see Indiana versus Kentucky versus Wisconsin, like kind of get a wide breadth and do
really basic stuff.
Yeah. Like just super basic. We'll come up with the questions and we'll just do like a little segment or something on that and be like, okay, here's what we discovered. What is that a moth? What is that?
Is that a Georgia O'Keeffe painting?
Okay, so now it's doing the avatar thing. I don't know why it wasn't doing that before.
I didn't like you.
Background. I know. It hates me.
It's
Goblin Slayer.
Okay, so Eric, I wanted to go back to your monologue because we kind of skipped over that since Fox was here. I wanted to at least touch on the Donald Trump stuff real fast. But I want to go back to your monologue talking about how everybody thinks they're so unique and so special that it's creating more problems, I think, than not at this point. So sometimes it's hard for me to reconcile that because again, like I go back to the individual is the smallest minority, right? Like the individual person is the smallest minority. And you know, are you unique and special? No, there's probably a fucking carbon copy of you out there somewhere that was put out there by probably government. Like you probably have a clone somewhere.
Well,
But
you can be special like your mom tells you, but you just can't expect to be treated as if you're special.
right. It's like the American Idol auditions, right? You go out and you
Yes.
sing and you're so bad. And you're looking at these judges and they're like, "No, it's a no for me." And they're sitting there going, "But I'm so good. My mom told me I can sing really well." And the judge is sitting there going, "No, but you don't. You don't sing well." And they cognitively they cannot comprehend a world in which they are not the next Mariah Carey, who I guess arguably could also not be a good singer if you depending on what your taste are. But that's beside the point. We're not gonna go there. But and this kind of ties back into Chris's monologue last week about citizenship and community and things like that. If we are constantly trying to set ourselves apart and be individuals, then my fear is, and so I'm going to, I guess, maybe kind of push back on this a little bit. My fear is that collective mind, right? That hive mind, that NPC like mentality where a Democrat, right? They move in lockstep because they all think alike, they all act alike, they all are alike. Everything about them in their uniqueness is exactly the same, right? So my only fear is that when we start really moving away from any sort of individual thought or individual identity, we start becoming more collective and then we get into a situation where maybe the large group doesn't make such great decisions together, like communism. So how do we balance that? Like how do we maintain individual identity but also still work as a collective for a healthy, happy, productive community, independent and irrespective of the government?
You have to restore patriotism.
Okay, so let's talk about steps to do that. Like, how do we restore patriotism? How do we restore faith in our country, faith in our nation, pride in who we are as a nation and a country? How do we do that?
I think you have to start by not talking about being proud to be an American as a negative, as a hateful, xenophobic thing. And then you have to start saying things that are true. We have to have leaders who say things that are true, who tell us they're going to do something and then do it. And then just like working at a company that's getting their shit together, you say, "Oh, okay. All right. No, I'll get on board. I'll start pulling the same direction too." While, maintaining your own individual life, just not expecting that you need laws and rules made to make your life easier. Maybe sometimes an inconvenience is the price we pay to overall have a better situation. And we understand that a little better.
So some of this, Heather, is, in my opinion, we, as in like everybody here on this stream right now, is looking at America through the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our founding morals, who we grew up, whether that's conservative or Democrat. If you're listening to this, you were, even if you were a Democrat, you're probably looking at the Democrat Party going, "I don't fucking recognize you anymore." So now you're kind of, you don't know where to go. But with all that being said, that Constitution isn't meant to be lived through bureaucracy. We're not supposed to, our government isn't supposed to be this big. And now we're at this spot here where we awoken, we're woke, whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it feels like we went to sleep in the 80s and now we're just waking up going, wait a minute. What did you guys do? And what is that acronym?
We got boots on the ground in how many places?
What, you're in Twitter? That's not real. That's what? So a lot of this is, it's a little over fucking whelming
Yeah.
for the regular. I'm talking about the people between the Rockies and the Appalachian Mountains and everywhere in between there.
Yeah.
And not on the other sides of them. I don't know, because I'm not there, because it's different here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going, what the fuck just happened? And we did. We went to sleep because the economy was awesome and we were doing cocaine and things were cheap and we could have a lot. But that now has, all that convenience has come with a lot of 3-letter acronyms that now we're all going, what the fuck is all this? What is all this? So I don't know that we can still live as Republicans through the Constitution as it's written. We're gonna have to get down in the mud with the Democrats and get this shit back, or we're gonna end up back in war.
Well, we are in a post-constitutional society. I mean,
Yes.
the entire system was thrown out the window completely by the time FDR ended his presidency, or had it ended, I should say.
Do you think there's a way to like, God, man, I sit here and I think about what war would look like. It would be fucking awful here.
Here?
It would, yes.
Yeah.
Like a civil war, a genuine civil war, which is what it feels like they want. Like they're pushing us in that direction. Like, how much can you hate thy neighbor? How much can you despise the country that you live in? How much can you despise the person sitting across the table from you? How much can we make you hate that person?
And then when you go to war with it, we can do martial law and then we'll own all of you.
Right.
And I would expect the third party to show up 5 minutes after it starts.
Yeah.
Joy said political socialization should begin at home. The problem is this has been outsourced to government schools. The right has ceded any ground it had there to the left.
Yeah, and that's a problem even, within the church communities, where everybody just assumes that, oh, the public school will teach them everything that's right. And of course, because I live out in, bumfuck Montana, it's not happening here, when in reality it is, and it has been. In fact, some of those like very rural areas are some of the worst, because that's where all the left wingers go as part of like Teach America shit.
Well, I made this comment in my last article that I wrote. The people who are your teachers, your pediatricians, your therapists, your psychologists, all of those people are the people who are affecting this change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all coming. It's all coming from within. And I had friends in medical school about 10 years ago, and the horror stories they would tell me, and how they had to do rotations at their child gender clinics. And these were states in the South. They were public institutions doing this shit. And at that time, nobody cared. Only now is it fad to push back on those issues. But it really started to change in the Obama administration. I had doctors and surgeons who were retiring and getting out because of the administrative changes that they had to comply with and the new curriculum. And I was in an appointment last year for my annual checkup, and they brought in a med student, and she had a checklist, like plastic cards, asking me the most basic questions. It's the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, where you can't memorize this. You have to go on a checklist to ask me how I'm doing, what my temperature is, and everything else. You're in
We're so
you're in
fucked.
med school.
So scary.
I'm
Okay,
about
we've
to be
got
an old person. I can't. No, we need competence in the hospitals, please.
nope.
Oh, do you
Nope.
guys want to? Do
Diversity.
you guys want to guess what percentage of doctors in the United States
Nope.
are from outside of the United States?
64.
Do you know the answer to that percentage number?
It's well over 30%.
I was gonna say 46. 46.
It's a lot closer to that. Yeah, it's around there.
That's crazy. You know why though? Because our kids can't do that here. We have dumbed the schools down. We've dumbed them down.
We have dumbed them down, but the reality is it's too expensive to go to an American college to get a 4 or 5 year degree with all the new requirements you have to graduate. Like schools are now adding in language requirements or extra science shit to keep you in forever. And then medical school, it's an additional, 3 to 4 years where you're not earning income at all. You have lost opportunities, and then you have your clinic rotations after it, depending on your specialty. So you're in your late 20s, maybe early 30s, depending on when you start, and you have no income. All you have is debt. Where overseas, if you have good grades at your high school level, their colleges are like professional programs. You don't have extracurricular or
You want to
You
be
mean
a
they
doctor?
use logic?
Yeah.
yeah.
You
They're
mean
like,
they
okay,
just teach you to be a doctor instead of telling you to
So they
take
just
you don't
English.
need to
cultural
learn
studies
lesbian
or
literature.
women's
Yeah.
studies?
Holy shit!
You want to be an aerospace engineer? Here's some math.
I know this. I know we got to wind this stream down, Heather. But while we have you, Fox, do you think that there's going to be a shift in higher education at some point, where like, do you think Stanford, what they did to that judge, and then there's just been some things that are starting to turn? I feel like, or am I imagining that?
I would hope that it would, but I don't think so.
It's really hooked in there.
That you got to look at what the red states are doing to their public institutions, and if they're not cracking down on the size of their administrative wings, and if they're not cracking down on how left wing the law schools have become, which is, I'm not aware of any state that's run by the Republican Party that has actually countered to stop this shit. What I would hope to see out of Stanford is for the school to decline to grant any of them their character and fitness statement, to send it to the state bar, and to expel them so that they may never practice. Because if people like
it was that big of a deal, right?
It is that big of a deal. If you can't represent a client in good faith, a person like those kids at Stanford will fuck over a client by improperly releasing evidence, like Alex Jones' attorney, or screwing their client over in other ways, which is on the rise with a lot of young people because they have absolutely no control over. They're just not able to keep their hands off their client money these days, or sometimes it's drug related too. But as an attorney, you have to be able to represent somebody, even if it means that you're taking a stance that you personally disagree with, because you're representing your client, and you must do that, to the fullest extent that you're legally able to do. These people
What if they're
can't.
a literal Nazi?
What if they made the Nazi of the Week Club, Fox?
Oh my
It's a cisgendered white man who's a colonizer. Oh my God. And that's what they're going to do. And that's going to affect their professional judgment. And it's obvious that these people can't deal with an opposing opinion. So how are they going to act in court?
I think a lot of actions are being justified. Some of this Trump indictment, a lot of people feel like this is their go back in time and kill Hitler moment. And it's important that they stop. these evil things from happening.
So real quick, I suck fucking really bad at the whole like production process of live streaming. So thanks to Chris for going over to Rumble and like commenting with some of the people. But I just
And
wanted to go
Getter.
back.
Getter's got a lot of comments too.
Yeah. Seymour said, "Love to see Trump get a mugshot and put it on T-shirts and sell millions. That would be pretty funny, actually."
That'll be
Okay.
available at patriotsportsnow.com as soon as it happens.
Right, exactly. So real fast, we've got 3 minutes to our hard stop time. So I do want to, just because it's our staple point, 2 truths and a lie. I do want to get it in tonight before we end the show.
Yep.
That's what she said.
So, and for future shows, guys, we will start on time. We just had a conflicting scheduling issue tonight. So, all right. Story number 1. Oh, okay. I guess I need to tell the rules in case like we got new people. So, 2 truths and a lie. And this goes for Rumble and Getter as well. You guys can participate, YouTube watchers. I will give 3 stories. Don't cheat. I'm going to get my mom finger out and tell you guys don't cheat. I'm going to give you 3 stories. One of those stories is not real. I made it up myself. And I didn't even trick them this time. Like I wrote the entire thing myself. And so they have to guess the lie. And the audience can participate. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Which one do you think is the lie? And I will be keeping points, and there will be a prize awarded to the follower who has the most points at the end of the quarter. So technically, this is our second episode, but it'll be at the end of the second quarter. So at the end of June, at the end of June. So
when's our fiscal year?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. So story number 1. Giant meatball of extinct mammoth unveiled in the Netherlands. A giant meatball made from flesh cultivated using the DNA of an extinct woolly mammoth was unveiled on Tuesday at Nemo, a science museum in the Netherlands. That is story number 1. Story number 2, bid for work from home for everyone that can. In a push to bring us back to the days of COVID lockdowns, a small nonprofit organization is lobbying members of Congress to pass legislation that requires employers of non-essential personnel to have the option to choose to work from home ... permanently. Story number 3. Woman sells home that she's lived in for 102 years, which her family bought for 200 pounds. A 104-year-old woman is selling the home she moved into at age 2, having lived in it through the Second World War, the invention of the television, and the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. Which story is the lie?
I heard about the
3.
mammoth burger.
3. I got 3.
I'm going 3 because 2 also sounds very believable.
It's got to be 3 because, like, who cares about the tomb? Like, nobody cares. Nobody bases history off of that.
All right. I want to make sure we give the audience some time to chime in on this before I give the answer. Over on Rumble, Heavy Steps.
We have a 3 on Getter.
Okay.
Would you eat a mammoth meatball?
Joey says the 3rd story is the lie.
I don't know if I would eat a mammoth meatball. What if cavemen never ate mammoths?
What if they didn't? What if all of they ate were plants? What if they were not even meat eaters at all?
No, they were shredded. You see the guys at the museum?
That's true.
Yeah, that's protein.
They're really hairy. All right, everyone, so far, everyone says the 3rd story is the lie. I am going to tell you guys the 3rd story is actually true.
Some bitch!
The 2nd story, the bid to work from home for everyone that can, is a lie. I made that one.
Wow.
Myself.
You know what? That was the most believable.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
was.
Yeah, because there are a lot of states with legislation.
There is.
Had I not heard the meatball story previously, I would have definitely thought the meatball story was bullshit. Yeah, this is the most believable one.
No, Eric, it just the opposite. Like, look, the Dutch make wooden shoes, so why the hell would they not make meat out of,
Yeah.
DNA when they have it right in front of them? But all they do is useless crap in Northern Europe.
So really quick
They
for
clog.
audience purposes,
Yes.
I'm just going to go through these stories just a little bit to just kind of give a little bit more context. So the meatball was created by an Australian cultured meat company called Vow, which promises that it was not an April Fool's joke. It wants to get people talking about cultured meat, calling it a more sustainable alternative for real meat. So my question to you guys, real quick, would you eat meat that was cultivated out of a petri dish and turned into a steak or whatever?
We probably already have, but I don't want to. Not,
Yeah.
not if I know it.
Like voluntarily, you would not do
No.
it.
Nope.
No.
Fuck
Fox,
no.
you too?
Absolutely not, Heather.
I figured.
I'll go get
Sound
a
like
bow and
Alex.
take a deer.
It's a
right
very
out
good
here.
Alex Jones impersonation, Fox, just so you
Listen
know.
here. There's a international elf conspiracy from the space wizards.
Holy
With all
shit.
due respect, Alex,
This is just
the
as
science
good
is
as
settled.
Eric's. All right, so this old lady, her name is Nancy Joan Gifford. She was born just months after the end of the First World War and spent 102 years living in a 3-bedroom house in the Somerset village of Street. She is putting it on the market. Her family bought the house for £200 in 1921.
That's
It
what
is
I
now
thought.
priced at £169,950 for the same home.
That's a pretty good return on investment.
Yep.
Yep. According to the Bank of England's inflation calculator, £200 in 1921 would be worth £7,750 today.
Well, that's what she should get then. Right?
Um,
That's what she should be wanting. If
That's
she wants
equity.
to sell it for what they bought it for, that would be
Right.
more, more similar.
that's equity.
Yeah, that's the word.
Mrs. Gifford's
Old-fashioned
son,
equity.
John, who is 79 years old, still lives in the town. He said, when I was a youngster, there were so many lovely families that lived along the road, and we all knew each other. The times we had as children were fantastic, going across the fields, jumping over ditches, bird nesting and swimming in the rivers. So many things children do not do these days. And so I thought,
Yeah.
just as a nod to Patriots and Petticoats and our general message of let's bring things back to fucking normal,
Yeah.
this was a very good story to include for this evening. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. We used to just go in the woods and push
Go
dead
climb a
trees
tree.
over and have the time of our lives.
yeah,
Used
I
to
know, right? Just
Go to the
go play
woods
Mud
and
Fort Wars at the creek and
take your
hang
dad's
out.
fifth of whiskey and steal a few cigarettes and go to
Okay,
the
you're-
oak tree.
Your upbringing was a little bit different than mine. Okay,
Don't set
on
the
that
hay on
note,
fire.
I'm gonna let everybody go. Eric, thank you. I'm sorry for going over just a little bit, about 5 minutes. Chris,
we're good.
appreciate you. Fox, thank you so much for coming
Thanks,
on with us
Fox.
today. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
You're gonna be the residence attorney, so when we have
Woo-woo.
wonderful legal
Every week.
issues come up, we'll be bringing you on.
Awesome.
Joey, MB, thank you guys for joining. Audience
Everybody
over
on
at
Getter.
Rumble and Getter, we love you guys. Come back, like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends how ridiculous we are. We're really
Yeah.
ready for this to take off. So we love you guys. You guys take care. Have a great night.
Adios.
Later.
Later.